Hey everybody, welcome to another stream. This is our third and final stream this week, talking about Saints Row the Third being ported to the Switch. I'm Josh Stinson. I'm the video editor and stream czar here. And today on the couch we have...
I'm Randy Oberlerchner. I'm a programmer here at Volition. On Saints Row the Third, I was the project systems architect.
And I'm Chris Dubois. I'm an artist, and on SR3 I was a QA tester.
Cool. And we also have some guests today. Over Skype, we have a whole bunch of people from Fishlabs, the developers who helped port this game to the Switch. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Okay, yeah, maybe I can start. My name is Johannes. My title is Head of Core Technology, so I kind of took the lead on the programming side for this project. Managing stuff, estimating stuff, and also I did lots of the rendering implementation. Behind me, he can't talk now because he had to go to a wedding, not his own wedding. It's Clemens, our project manager. I think today he's like going to do most of the stuff he also normally does here.
Yeah, hi, I'm Josh. I'm the lead tester of the game, mostly.
Yeah, I'm Stefan. I'm the QA tester working alongside you.
And I'm Nikolai, and I was helping out to board the game. Mostly, the Switch-specific coding stuff.
And I'm Bruno. My supposed title is Senior Engine Developer, and I was assisting in most of the development in the port.
All right, cool. So this is like, I've never really thought too much about what it must be like to port something, but just to start off, what type of challenges, how different are the challenges porting something compared to developing something?
Well, it's completely different, I would say. You have only more or less the technical side left, aside from maybe smaller UI changes or integrating buttons for the target platform. But otherwise, you have mostly the technical stuff left that's specific to that platform you're targeting. So, for example, normally graphics APIs are different, so that's something you have to exchange, or integration with the target OS, like for save games or multiplayer, stuff like that. And then you might also have platform or special features for the given platform. So for the Switch, for example, you have the HD Rumble thing you have to implement, or the docking mechanism, you have to do something for that. And am I forgetting something?
Yeah, that's overall in the technical part, yes. And then there's also the part that we have to take care of, which is the assets. So a lot of the things that are done for the season then needed to be for the port. We need to pick up these assets and make sure that they are compatible for the new system, and that, of course, is quite a lot of work as well.
Okay.
So and then, of course, before we forget that, we also have to test the whole game again, just to make sure it still works on the type platform.
So, when doing QA stuff on that, I'm just trying to imagine, because so much QA has been done on the original release of the game, is the QA still as intense as it is for the initial development of a game, or is it more is it more you're only looking for specific issues already, or is it still you have to check everything all over again?
Mostly, I would say we had to check everything again, because since we ported it to the Switch, they could break anything, so we had to check. And especially when the game is already released, the players outside knows what the game should look like and how it works. So for us, it was a hard time sometimes, but yeah, we had to check the whole game.
Okay.
We could break, and we did break everything basically. With memory, for example, textures might have a different size, or the shaders or the meshes might have a different size for the given target platform, and then you have to set up the memory pools again to match that. And then, for example, in one specific mission, it was crashing because all the meshes didn't fit anymore. So you really have to test everything, because it might just be off by a couple of kilobytes or megabytes or something.
So, compared, is there anything specific Well, I guess you've already said that actually. That like there's some unique things with porting to the Switch too, because you also have to test separately for undocked and all of that. But is there anything like really different porting to the Switch compared to like the Xbox or the PS4? That's like something you haven't had to deal with before?
Not really specific, I would say. Of course, there are some stuff that are not on the Xbox or on the PS4, like the controllers you can change or something like that. You can use the nunchuck, the Joy-Con players or the Pro controllers. So there was always a possibility that something's breaking, but...
Okay.
Yeah, but in general, I would say the Switch is a pretty standard target platform. Aside from the docking and undocking, because there you get like two different modes where you have different resolutions, if you want to at least, and also it's going to look different to the player, because once they have the small screen and then they have it on the big screen, so you also have to make sure it still looks good in both situations.
Okay. Randy, do you have any, are you curious about how they handle any specific things with this game?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just from like a top level, did you take your version and then take the old version and run them side by side and try to find, where they differ and see like, oh, we messed this up for some reason, have to dig into why? Or did you kind of just look at the Switch and be like, this doesn't look quite right, so something must be wrong here?
Yeah, we did both. In the beginning, of course, we had to get it running and we had to get everything render kind of okay-ish until we could even start testing. And then at some point, we actually sat down, took the PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360 version and compared them side by side, switched input channels on the TV to see if it was something good. And everything was there where it's supposed to be. Of course, there are a couple of I'm trying to think of some example where it looks okay, but if you actually see the original, then you see, well, it wasn't supposed to look like that. But
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there was something like that, but I can't come up with a good example right now.
That is entirely possible. It's a big game.
Especially the Saints Row, the third, it's so big, there's so much stuff, and you have days, you have nights, you have interiors, you have exteriors, there's so much going on, and you have the satellite weapon, which is completely different from the rest, and there's just so much functionality, not only the rendering, but also from the gameplay side that has to work and has to fall into place before everything is like it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it seems like a monumental challenge just to test everything again, because it's just like when we built it the first time, we were looking at progression, like this thing would work sort of, and then it would get better and better. Whereas you guys like got to go from 0 to 100 across the board on everything, which is just a completely different challenge from what we had to do. So, kudos to you on that.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's just so much, and also when you consider the options, for example, and that's actually one of the reasons. I mean, there's going to be there's a day one patch, but it's actually 3 or 4 patches in one, because we just after doing the initial build, we found we found a couple of other things we hadn't discovered before that had to be fixed, because there's so much.
Like because there is just so much stuff and it's all there and you have to check all of it, like on projects like this, do you receive any type of list documenting all the things that are in the game? Or is it just like you just have to make sure you got everything?
No, we was very lucky that the guys from Volition did a great job on the documentation. So we had a bunch of lists of stuff what we can search and check what is in a game and not. But yeah,
Okay,
very lucky because if not, there was really like a high risk, because there are so many little things in the game that if you don't know about it, you can maybe miss it. So yeah.
Right, and I'm guessing you can speak to that, Chris. That documentation was probably, in part, some of your work, right?
Yeah, we early on when you were starting to work on it, you'd got in contact with us so we could share some of the test documents that we had and just journal documents that even we used from the team to be able to help you, because, like you said, there's so much stuff to track. Even when we were doing it, spreadsheets, test plans, everything just to keep track of stuff. Because even if you're testing the game for like months and months on end, you're not going to remember every little detail. And there's so many weapons, so many upgrades, so many player upgrades. You just need to be able to remember all of it. And I think we were able to give you everything that we had to be able to test it, because we at least are thankfully very documented on that stuff.
Yeah. And I also, like, I've talked to you a decent amount, because, like, we've had Chris on several other streams in the past, a couple years ago. You helped do, like, a speed run of Gat Out of Hell.
Yeah.
And you, every time you've had to talk about, like, your QA past and stuff, you still remember a lot of stuff. And I don't, like, is that just because maybe you can speak to this too, working on the QA stuff, like, when working on QA, does that stuff just get seared into your brain? Is that just something that you can't forget for the rest of your life?
I think it's probably a little bit of the fact that you're staring at the game for 40 to 60 hours a week sometimes, and sometimes you're doing the same sort of routine, so a lot of it gets baked in, but, like, it also can be just sort of personality. Like, I tend to have an odd ability to just absorb information and retain it. So,
right.
But yeah, like, SR3, I was on it for at least a year. I forget exactly how long. And that was minimum 40 hours every week staring at a game. And so it's like you're just going to end up remembering it if you're put in 1,000 hours into it.
Right.
That's crazy.
Because I like, we did the Gat Out of Hell speed run, which is, you know, admittedly that's a smaller game, so that we could fit the speed run into a single, like, hour-long stream?
Yeah.
You did it in like 45 minutes or something, right?
No, I think I did it just shy of an hour.
Okay.
Like, I think I was off by a few minutes on my best run.
But it's like, I don't really remember you practicing. It was just like, can you do this? And you're like, okay, boop.
Yeah.
Like, just.
Yeah. Well, in most of the projects I've been on, I've been either the art test lead or at least an art tester, and so I end up testing the world, and knowing the world happens to be one of your, especially in a game like this where it's open world, knowing the world is a great benefit to being able to manipulate and maneuver through faster. Like, one of the first things I did in SR1 was testing streaming and seeing how things loaded and trying to break it, and that's a lot about learning shortcuts, how the vehicles handle, how the game handles information, and so, like, that inherently allows you to be able to do things faster because you just know, okay, if I go down this road, you're not even looking at the mini-map at this point, you're just like, I know I go this way, I could go that way. So it's just sort of, you end up, like, learning how the game works, and, like, speed runs just sort of inherently come there, because most of the games I didn't do a lot of gameplay testing, and but by the end of the project, I was usually just, I already know the missions because I've been doing crit path runs for a while, and I know if I drive a vehicle this way, I'll be able to get here and shave off a minute, or if I'm doing these things, doing these systems, I'll be able to take advantage and get through things faster, or just, like, take advantage of little quirks we know.
Yeah. So one thing I also wanted to ask you guys, you mentioned a little bit earlier that, you know, you said that there was a day one patch that was more like 4 or so patches combined just because you were able to keep adding on to it to fix more things. Can you give us some of the details of what type of fixes that patch contains?
Where's the list? Yeah, so there's one performance improvement. It's especially beneficial in, like, action-heavy scenes when lots of particles are being rendered. And otherwise, the subtitles were broken outside of cutscenes. So that's also one thing we had to discover, that subtitles inside of cutscenes are different from subtitles outside of cutscenes, which was a bit surprising, to be honest. And then, what else? I think it might be, matchmaking, online matchmaking was also something we fixed. And then a bunch of smaller fixes. If you want a conclusive list, I will have to look it up now.
Okay, but the major things being performance improvements and fixing those open world subtitles and matchmaking.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
I wanted to add one thing to the QA side we talked about earlier. One thing to consider with the port is that you already have a big community on the internet or in general, and there are already bug lists out there that are not really done by you guys, by the developers, by fans, for example. So that's also something that we did when we found a bug in the game. First thing we did was actually check if it's an original bug or if it's a bug that we introduced. And then we took that and we kind of decided if it's something we need to fix because we introduced it, or if it's something that has always been in the game and it's just part of the experience, so to speak. Or if it maybe is so bad that it has to be fixed after all.
Yeah, I'm sure our mistakes are well documented by the internet.
Yeah. Is that a part of the documentation that you would send over? Is like any still like standing small bugs or anything that never got? Because I'm sure there's like still some small bugs somewhere in that game, even in the final version.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, there's a reason that we were still trying to keep up on patches and bug fixing even after the release of the game, because like even with as large of a team as we did have testing the game on SR3, even with external support, you're not going to be able to hit everything. There are a lot of interacting systems, stuff that's like permutations that you just can't possibly imagine. It's like when I got hired, I was told it's like, okay, there's going to be dozens of us testing, and when the game ships, there are going to be hundreds or thousands, millions of people times like what you had. So anything that you find that's like a 1% or a 0.1%, multiply that by 1,000,000, and that's how many more people could find it.
Oh man.
The other thing too is that not only we ship the game, right, and then there's all this DLC afterwards. So each DLC pack we do has the possibility of breaking the original game.
It does.
So that like makes the testing job even harder, because not only do you need to test the new DLC, but you need to test all the old content and make sure it still works in all the permutations possible.
Yeah, like different orders of like, oh, I only have this DLC and this DLC.
Oh no, I never considered that.
Yeah,
oh god, that's so much work.
Yeah, because like we can't expect the players to just buy all the DLC, so you have to like, players are going to buy, they're going to buy the mission packs, or maybe they're going to buy some of the cosmetic ones. Right. And you have to make sure everything plays in different combinations. We'd have a spreadsheet of like, okay, you guys
literally
are going to have
every combination of every. Oh jeez.
Yep.
But coming back to the Switch port, that's actually something that was different for us because you have all the DLCs. So it's just no permutations there.
Makes your job a lot easier.
Yeah.
So it was for some time. It was up in the air if we could get all the DLCs included on the card, or if that was going to be one big free DLC you would be able to download. But in the end, we actually managed to squeeze everything on the card so that you can have everything. That it's always the full game, the full package.
Oh, nice.
Was that an extra challenge to be able to squeeze everything in like one Switch cart, or was it able to just kind of? It was just smaller than how much. I don't even know how much a Switch cart can store. I think there's different sizes even.
Yeah, there are. I think it ranges from like 2 to 32 gigabytes.
Okay.
And of course, it's like you have to decide what you want to use, and it's a question of cost in the end, I think. So we settled for an 8 gigabyte cartridge, and that's also roughly what the I think 360 and PlayStation 3 versions ship with, like around that size. Okay. But that was of course without DLCs. So. We kind of had to find a way to squeeze in the DLCs in that size, and still, even if you have an 8 gigabyte cartridge, you can't really use all of the space. You have to like there's some reserved amount that you have to account for. So what we also we were using the PC assets more or less, or at least the permutation of the PC assets that were kind of bigger than the old console assets, so that in the beginning it didn't really fit. But then we came up with an idea to fix it. Do you want to talk about that, Bruno?
Yeah, it's just, it was thanks to you guys, because you mentioned something technical in the way that you did the streaming, which due to the nature of the Xbox, and when you have a DVD, you need to read it in a particular way for the streaming, and so you have to duplicate the textures. And as such, that was an idea to remove all the textures and put it on the side, so that we could then reduce the size and reduce the duplication of the textures, which then allows, obviously, to put everything in 8 gigabytes. Yep. Apart from the subtitles that come with the DLC, with the patch. Else will go and feed it, so yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a funny bug, so to speak, because if we kind of, as we said before, the subtitles outside of cutscenes are broken in the base version, but are fixed with the patch. But if we had actually included them in the base version, it wouldn't have fit.
Oh no.
Oh, jeez.
We forgot about them, or we didn't know that they were supposed to be there. So. Yeah, so they come with the patch.
Okay. I guess with that, Chris, could you start getting the Switch going? We'll switch over to that in like another minute or two once we get the game going up. You'll have to hold down the home button in the middle there. You'll feel the like controller vibrate and stuff. But yeah, while we continue to talk about this, we'll here. Let me see here.
I'm not hearing it vibrate.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll get the game up going in a second here, and you'll play through the beginning because we did stream it on Monday earlier this week as well, but we were just playing through some of the open world, and we did the mission, where you parachute into the penthouse and stuff like that.
Oh, yes.
Mission
So yeah,
5.
we
The
haven't
power
seen
moment.
the beginning or anything like that.
Okay.
That's like the signature part, in my opinion, is the beginning.
Yeah.
It's the most memorable part of the game, probably.
Totally.
Yeah, the Bank Vault mission was such a fun mission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you have any more questions for them? I actually might have to our TV's being weird.
Aw.
It's hard to play a game if you can't see the game on the TV. So
Yeah, that's.
I
Yeah.
might be good at memorizing things, but not that good.
yeah, can you play Saints Row 3 blindfolded?
That'd be a new
I
challenge.
bet he could. I really do.
Yeah.
I really bet he could. It would be worth having a stream for that.
I mean,
just to see the
maybe
hilarity that would
maybe
ensue.
maybe that's a gimmick that we'll do later on or something to see how far we can get in a blind playthrough, literally blind. But yeah, do you have any more questions for them?
I can't think of any off the top of my head. I'm just curious to see it play. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have a Switch myself, so
I mean,
Just to
it's
see how it looks
it's
compared.
certainly wild to see it like played on a Nintendo platform.
Yeah. I never really sort of imagined the day that we would, because, like,
Yeah,
I'm so used to us always doing...
yeah, I've never worked on a game on a Nintendo platform. I mean, I've been in the industry for 18 years, and we've never done a Nintendo game that I've worked on.
yeah.
So
I think, didn't we, like, at some point have another studio, like, port one of the
Yeah.
Summoner games?
One of the
to
Summoners is
GameCube?
on GameCube.
yeah, games
but-
that we worked on have been ported to.
Yeah.
Nintendo
But I don't
platform,
even
I've
know if
never
we-
worked on one.
Yeah, I don't even know if we internally tested that, so... And that was well before my time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess while I figure out what's going on with our TV here, everyone there at Fishlabs, obviously you worked on stuff before this. So, what are some of the other games you've worked on?
Well, Fishlabs is kind of, we've been on, well, the company has been around for a long time, I think since 2004, and it's actually a company that started working on mobile games for Java feature phones. So that's kind of where we're coming from. And then we took like the smartphone, adopted that, and started doing 3D games. So I think Fishlabs is most known for Galaxy on Fire, or the Galaxy on Fire series.
Mm-hmm.
Which was on mobile and on smartphone, and the latest version is also on the Switch actually.
Oh, okay.
So sorry, were you asking about Fishlabs or about us personally?
I think both, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe people don't know a lot about Fishlabs, where you guys are located, what stuff you've worked on.
True. So yeah, what Fishlabs worked on, you know now, but we are located in Germany, in Hamburg. Which I think most people know. It's like kind of close to the sea. I think Hamburg is known for its harbor. What else about Fishlabs? We since 2013 we are part of the Deep Silver family, like you guys are.
Yep.
We are kind of a smaller studio. At least I think Volition is bigger. We are currently we are like 65 people in one big office here.
So how long is... I'm sorry, maybe you said that while I was messing with the Switch. How long has Fishlabs been around for?
Since 2004,
Okay.
quite a long time.
That's a long time.
Yeah, that's... Especially in this industry, it always feels crazy to hear about a studio that's like been around for like that long and is still like doing some pretty good stuff.
Yep.
So, is this you were talking about the other games you worked on earlier too? But is this your first like major port work, or have you done some other games too for ports?
Well, Fishlabs, we only ported our own game to the Switch, the Manticore Galaxy on Fire.
Right, I remember seeing that. Yeah.
Switch game. Yeah, it's like a space shooter thing. That's the first. Before Saints Row, that was the biggest port we here at Fishlabs did. I personally worked on Little Big Planet for the PS Vita, which I guess is kind of similar because we took like a console game and put it on a handheld device. So it's kind of not repetitive for me, but history repeating itself here. Taking a big console game, putting it on a handheld device.
Okay. I guess for all of you there, was the games industry specifically something that you were aiming to get into, or was it just something related to the field that you were already working in, or was it just like, whoops, I'm in the games industry? Because that's kind of how it happened to me personally. I was just kind of, whoops, I'm here now.
Well, in my particular case, I started at least in the area of computer science and development, but I started in networking, as a matter of fact. My first job was in internet service provider, and then I wanted to do games, and I did end up starting my career as a game developer in 2002. That was quite a long time ago. And since then, I've been working in the game dev industry and on and off. So I've done other things as well, which I think is always good sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I joined here Fishlabs for like since 2 years and a half, I think, roughly. I'm working here, and and I don't plan on leaving the game dev industry. I'm quite happy with what I'm doing.
Yeah, I always wanted to do games. It was always like my passion. But to be honest, I never really played that much, and still don't. Yeah, some people you shouldn't tell it to, but I always enjoyed the programming side more and like the technical challenge of it. But I always kept like a backup plan, so I also studied computer science just in case the game thing doesn't work out.
Smart.
I could also do other stuff, but actually I've never worked on anything else. I've always worked on games, always been a games programmer.
Yeah, I mostly was also always games addicted. So for me, I came in the industry like 9 years ago with an internship. And yeah, it was like for me, I want to know how the industry is working, and yeah, I feel so comfortable in it, and I love it to work on it. So yeah, I grew up in the industry, and I'm very happy to be here.
I started out studying game design for a year, and since then I jumped into the QA track and have been enjoying it quite a lot. And here in the company, I've been in for a bit over 2 years. In the whole industry for 4, just.
Yeah, as the other guys, I also studied computer science, and in the gaming industry, I'm about 8 or 9 years. I'm not sure, and yeah, it's pretty challenging and a lot of fun.
And I guess for the two of you as well, was that, because I mean, you have been, Chris, at Volition for like a really long time, from what I recall. Because I mean, the first thing you worked on was Saints Row 2?
1.
1, okay.
Yeah.
Even earlier than I thought. But yeah, were you specifically aiming to like get into the games industry? Is something you actually wanted to work on, or was it just like, this might be cool?
It kind of was a little bit of something I kind of fell into. I had finished college with a art degree, and the expectation and thought with that was that I'd eventually go into like film or TV, because that was everything that the program was geared towards. They had just started while I was there a games program, but I didn't have any success with getting any like actual like returns on my applications and sending out my portfolio, which it's always a pretty tight industry to get into without knowing people. And so I came back here and found out like from my parents at the time that, hey, there's a game studio here, and
Yeah.
I'd seen, I think, something in the newspaper or something where Volition was looking for QA testers. Like, hey, like, I've played games most of my life, so I was like, I can give that a shot. And so I went and interviewed, and then the following year, in February of 06, I started on SR1 when we were working on finishing it up. Like, we had just gotten like an extension on the project, and we were shooting for August to release it. And since I had an art background, they put me first on art testing before I eventually went to test art and multiplayer.
Okay. And how about you?
Yeah, I'm similar to the programmers over there. I got a computer science degree. While I was in school, I did a bunch of internships, and I sort of tried to pick ones that would put me on more of the 3D graphics realm. I never thought I would actually make it into the games industry. It just sort of happened. I applied to a bunch of companies. Several of them just ignored me. Volition was the only one that was super prompt, and they were on the ball. So yeah, they flew me down here. I did the interviews, and then I started working shortly after.
Yeah.
My first game was RF2 on the PS2. So that was like 18 years ago, I think. Yeah, and I've been here ever since, which is also insane.
Yeah. And real quick for me, it's just like, I did YouTube videos, and then I saw somebody wanted a video editor here and needed them to specifically do streams, which is what I was doing already. It's like, okay, it's the closest game dev thing to me because I live in Michigan. Everywhere else is way too far and cost prohibitive, and I got lucky, I think. Unfortunately, we're still having some technical difficulties, specifically with our TV, so that we can play the Switch version of the game. And unfortunately, we can't also just like undock the Switch and then just capture it that way too. So here, let me real quick do
IT solution, power it on, power it off, the TV.
I tried that. I tried the IT solution of rebooting a thing.
It always works.
Yeah. Mike, do we have any questions from the chat or anything?
Yeah, hang on. Chat does want to know who the cardboard cutout is behind Fishlabs.
Yeah, so who's the cardboard cutout again?
Is it the face or the rest?
I mean...
You mean that face doesn't go with that body?
I mean both, I suppose.
It goes really well together, right?
Yeah.
The body is actually a character from Galaxy on Fire. Does anyone know who it is? No. Stefan?
I can't remember.
So, character from Galaxy on Fire. And the face is Clemens, our product manager. He's also very passionate about games. And who is it?
It's our in-game currency seller.
Okay. He says mobile.
Yeah.
On the side while doing project management. Yeah. Does anyone know Clemens CV? No.
No.
I think he also enjoys doing games. And project management.
Okay. So I guess, I see what else I can do with this Switch here. You worked on SR3.
I did.
Can you tell, like what some of the specific things you worked on were? Like what some of the challenges were there?
Sure. So Saints Row 2 and 3, I was the system architect, which is basically like the director who's responsible for making sure that the programming stuff all works and there's no technical risk. And so it's stuff like memory management and making sure streaming works, optimization, stuff like that, just overseeing all that stuff.
Right.
So a lot of the stuff on Saints Row 3, sort of coming off of 2, we kind of knew areas of improvement, particularly optimization. So we did a lot of stuff where we said, okay, vehicles are really slow for these particular reasons. Can we like refactor how we make vehicles and how we put them together so that they run faster or take less memory? So we were very successful on Saints Row 3. I think the vehicles ended up being looking better, rendering faster, and using less memory, which is basically an insane holy trinity of impossibility in game development. I think we did pretty similar things on the NPC pedestrian side as well. So that stuff sort of allowed us to sort of push the graphical fidelity up. Because I think if you compare the two games, you can see it's quite a big jump in fidelity. So that's sort of really what I did, a lot of stuff with memory management, constantly making sure that the artists were staying on budget, which is an unending fight because they like to jam more content in there. So it's just making sure we had the tools so they could see to make sure that I'm staying within budget and that I can't submit things that break the build. So a lot of stuff like that. I don't think I worked on anything specific systems that I can recall. I'm sure there were along the way. A lot of it was more like random thing comes up which no programmer owns this in particular. Okay, I'll just go in and figure it out and fix it. By the time we hit Saints Row 3, our code base, and you guys can probably attest to this, is very large. It's actually got pieces of a bunch of different games in there, all sort of fighting to work together. And I'm unfortunately for you guys, probably hard to figure out sometimes which is the piece that's actually doing the thing that's getting on screen. And that's just because we constantly were adding more stuff to it. I mean, the Saints Row games are kind of really all about that. Is just more and more stuff, as much stuff as we can get in there. So that's kind of how it went.
Yeah.
So does that mean you were responsible for the memory budget?
Yeah, so all the budgets and trying to make sure that everybody had enough memory to get their stuff done. And there's probably still like a secret programmer memory stash in there somewhere. And that was how we did that. Basically, we made sure whenever some programmer found memory by optimizing their system or whatever, we would stuff it in that stash. Just so that if something blew up and there was no easy fix for it, we could take some memory from that stash, put it there, and that would help us ship the game. So I'm not sure where the stash actually ended up when we shipped. It's probably pretty small.
Yeah, I think like 700 kilobytes or something.
Yeah, I think we had it at several megs at points where we found significant savings. But yeah, that's the basic thing that allows us to ship the game, was that extra little secret stash. So how do you decide how much or how much memory each system gets? I think primarily it was historical. So we sort of started with the budgets from Saints Row 2, and then we kind of looked at, as they're building things, are they staying within that budget, or are they they want to push the fidelity more, so we need to find more memory to put it there, and then it's this balancing trade-off game. Like I said earlier, since we were able to optimize like vehicles and stuff, we're actually able to shrink those budgets and kind of redistribute that memory. And then we did a lot of crazy things like in the cinematics where we take a bunch of ambient memory and we consolidate it all together in one big blob so we can do this like full cinematic. So we just don't have enough memory set aside. So we play a lot of these shell game type of things in order to make it all work. Which is the fun of game development. It's just a big shell game.
Yeah, I remember someone telling me on, I think, SR2 that if you were to compare vehicles to the building environments, like one vehicle would cost like 10 buildings.
Yeah, that could be true. The big expense is all those customizable parts on it. On Saints Row 2, I think every ambient vehicle had all the parts that the player could put on their vehicle. So you're basically paying that very heavy budget for every vehicle. So what we did for Saints Row 3 is I think we split them in two. The artist creates the full thing with all of the bells and whistles on it, and then we do a process where we say, okay, some of these are going to be player only and some of them are ambient only. So we actually split it into two, and so then the ambient one ends up being smaller and faster, and then the player version is bigger. So then we do a thing in game where when I'm going along and I steal a car, we sort of swap it out. I think once you take it maybe to the garage and customize it, we swap it to the full version. And at that point, the player can do whatever they want with it, and then it's like promoted to a full car. And because we only know there are like one or two of those full cars in memory at once, I think we set aside specific slots for those. I think that's how we ended up doing it.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
just more shell games, right? And then anything we can do.
Yeah, I remember, I think we could only spawn, I think, 2, maybe 3 player cars through commands. So that may be kind of the result.
I think that's why. Yeah, you would.
Yeah.
I think when you would drop cars, it would like destroy the old ones when you were using like the debug.
Yeah, because I remember in past SR1, SR2, we could actually spam that command pretty generously and get a whole bunch of cars. So I always wondered about that, because it was that change from there. It's like, I'm used to being able to have like 10 cars out, and like I want to test all of them at once and just do some variety. And
Yep, that was.
I have
that
to
was the
keep
reason.
I have to keep respawning them because you have to go and like, okay, I need to shoot the tires out to make sure they all deflate, or I need to shoot off the different components. And
Yeah.
well, I tested it this way, and I need to drop a new one to test it a different way.
Something I was just thinking about is, we've personally done some streams where we've shown older builds of the game, and we're using dev commands from the console and stuff just to see like, oh, how many cars can we spawn before the game just kills itself. But like when you're working on dev versions of the port on your Switch dev kits or whatever, do you still have access to all the console stuff, or is it still functioning like it's a retail game at that point, considering like it's already done?
No, it's of course still all in the code, and we also enabled it, so we could also use it. Because it's kind of instrumental to testing the game, at least, yeah. So.
Does the Switch have USB ports, or you just plug a USB keyboard in there?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes it super easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I imagine we probably sent you guys over a list of debug commands to be able to work with testing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with some debug stuff.
Yes, you can break the game pretty badly if you want to.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Did you?
Sometimes.
That's kind of his job.
Another thing, I guess, is because the Switch has the undocked handheld mode. How do you? I'm guessing the dev kit switches are a little different for handheld mode, because you have to probably still be able to output video from how it's performing in handheld mode or something like that. Do you have a bunch of things plugged into some weird really giant chunky Switch version, or is it still the same normal Switch?
Well, not sure how much of that is actually NDA.
Oh, right, of course.
But it's
is it
pretty
different at
normal
least?
Switch. There's no much. I mean, there are test kits and dev kits, and the test kits are pretty much like the retail version, and the dev kits are a little different, but not too much.
Okay. Yeah, because I was just trying to imagine because I have some really old dev kits in my office, like a Sega Saturn.
Whoa.
And that thing has a cartridge slot, and it's chunk plugged in there, a huge band of cables that's a mile long, and it goes to this giant black monolith that weighs 50 pounds. And that was the test, a normal test kit for a Saturn.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I was just curious, if the Switch was still some giant behemoth or not. But it's 2019. It's not going to be huge.
Yeah, I think the PS2 one was pretty large, wasn't it?
Yeah, those were very, very large and very warm too.
Yeah. Yeah, even the original PS3 dev kits were we always joked that they looked like server trays.
Yeah, yeah.
They were impressive.
Yeah, they were big. I remember one of them blew up on me.
Oh really?
And it made this pop and bad smell and
oh no.
Yeah.
Did you have to extinguish it before it set the fire alarms off?
It didn't go on fire.
It just smelled real bad?
It just smelled like something must have burned out in the back of it.
Oh,
or whatever.
man.
This was several years ago. I can't remember which one it was. If it was the 3 or the 2. But yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Hardware fatality.
Yeah, that's sort of life and development.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we run these kits all the time, right? I mean, sometimes they're on all day and all night, and
yeah, and we're stressing
them
them
to the limit.
Yeah, we're stressing them to the limit, especially we found early on the 360 when we're doing SR1. Streaming just really stressed out the Xbox really badly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess you have any other things you're curious about how they handled or anything before we start wrapping the stream up?
Can't think of anything.
I wanted to. Yeah, I have one more thing.
Oh yeah,
sure.
So back to the memory, because in comparison to the old consoles, the Switch had actually quite a lot. So whenever we ran out of memory in one of the memory pools, we just kept adding hundreds of megabytes.
Nice.
That was really convenient and very easy at least that was the easy part of the port.
Sure. Yeah, I guess if you guys based it off the PC assets, our mempool sizes on the PC were probably pretty loose. Because we didn't,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a fixed memory budget like it is on a console, so we just picked some number, and as long as everything fit there, we were kind of okay with it. On the console, it's more challenging for sure, because you got that tighter budget. But yeah, if you guys use PC assets, then you're using those budgets, so.
Yeah, that is right.
When working on this port, was there like, again, I don't know nearly as much as either you two know or any of you know, but I'm imagining that like when, you know, trying to make some improvements in one spot, do you have to like kind of juggle and sacrifice other things? Like, is there a priority of things where it's like, well, to make this as good as we want, we kind of have to sacrifice, you know, for Y?
You might consider that there's of course a time constraint. We obviously have a particular time that we have to do. We have to finish the port within this time frame, and then we have sometimes to juggle between we need to have this feature set, these things ported, or we're going to have time to do certain optimizations. Is it worth it? So. Yeah, we had to juggle that quite a bit, obviously, within the time that we had to do the port. Okay. But overall, it worked out quite well, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one thing you always have with games is, of course, performance versus visual quality.
Yep.
And that's also one of the things we had to find, like the sweet spot for, that it actually runs at more or less 30 FPS. With an open world game, it's always difficult to always be like a stable frame rate, but still. It of course was supposed to look good enough.
Yeah.
Or at least, I don't know, not worse than the old console versions, for example. And like maybe comparable to medium PC at that time.
What?
It finally came back.
The Switch came back. That's pretty funny.
Man!
Well, you told it that the stream was ending, so it no longer had performance
I told
anxiety.
it, and now it's like so late here.
Yeah.
Look at that! What is that? Speaking of technology, I left the controller over there too. Man.
It knew.
That was so
it did
weird.
know. It's gonna trick me. I just know it's gonna do something to me and just like,
no doubt.
psych, gotcha.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, it's actually. Oh right, Adult Swim. Right, I had forgotten we had done the Genki stuff with Adult Swim.
Yeah. Although it looks like, it's just on the TV. It's not hitting the stream, which is the issue.
Oh.
Yeah, we're just getting black, so we'll just have to switch back to full screen of us. Yeah,
it looks good. Scream, I'm telling you, it looks good. I'm not lying.
I mean,
I'm seeing it
we did stream it last Monday. Y'all got to see it then too.
Mm-hmm.
That's unfortunate though. I really wanted to show the opening like 3 missions or something right before you get to the open world and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
What is technology doing to me today, everybody? Good Lord. Oh. But I do want to thank Fishlabs for being on. I've never been able to talk to anybody specifically about like porting, and I've always figured that was like a significantly different task from just like working on a game, considering everything's there already, and that seems daunting in a completely different way. But yeah, thank you so much for being on and talking to us about the process and all that stuff. It's super interesting, and like thank you so much for like all the work you did on the port for this game too. It's crazy to see Saints Row 3 on a Nintendo platform in any context, really.
Yeah.
Of course, thank you for having us, and of course we are just, so to speak, standing on the shoulders of you giants, because you made this huge game, and we just brought it to a new platform.
All right. Well, thanks for being on, guys, and hopefully, in the future, we can have some more chats or something. I've been meaning to play the games that you ported to Switch already, your mobile game, because I've seen like. When one of your previous ones came out for like mobile phones a while ago, like I would have gotten it honestly if my phone wasn't a piece of garbage. But like I can't even run like basic 2D games on like this crap phone. But yeah, now that it's on Switch, I might actually check that out because I've always really liked the spaceflight stuff. Yeah. But yeah, thanks for being on, guys.
Thank you.
Yep. See you later.
Bye.